Hi,
This
good morning.
conference will now be recorded.
Rahul, will it be feasible for you to join through laptop because I'll be sharing the screen and you'll have to see that.
Sure, Saloni. The thing is, me and Vinisha are in the same room. Like, we both are couples.
Super.
So, yeah, Vinisha is running late. She might be joining in 5 minutes.
Okay,
But I
let's
think
wait
we
for
can
the.
start. Yeah,
It's okay, we can wait, no problem.
sure. So,
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So anyway, so far guys, what we just discussed yesterday, multiple users and then the multiple instances.
No, Saloni.
Okay, so why do we need multiple instances? I talked about that we need multiple instances because at any given point in time, if we want teams to work on, as in developers will do the work in their development URL, testers in the test URL, and last but not least, I told you is the production or the go live URL. So that's the term for instance. Next is SaaS. Already, as I discussed yesterday, SaaS is software as a service in which the data is centrally hosted in the cloud network and people are accessing the data through the web browser interface. So this I'm not going into. This is the history of the tool. So ServiceNow was found way back in 2003 by the guy called Fred Luddy, and this guy initially was working for Remedy. So from there he got the approach, he got the idea of the ticketing tool, and then he used his own concept of SaaS, and because of which the ServiceNow gained its popularity. So ServiceNow is based on ITIL standards. Any idea, guys, what is ITIL standard? What is ITIL? Have you ever heard of the term?
Information technology, something, I don't know. But any project manager and all these guys have this ITIL certification in Six Sigma, things like that.
So what it is about? Any idea on that? As in, yeah, you're correct on that. That for manager level, it
No
is
idea.
required. Okay, take it. So actually, ITIL is I would say it is a process side of the work. So if a tool is based on ITIL lets your tool understand, lets your tool be more acceptable, more wider scale. How does it work? How does it make sense? Let's try to understand with an example. So ITIL talks about that. Let's say, for example, I'm building a library management tool, and what will you think about? So if I give you any technical dependency, any technical requirement, we always think about how to achieve it from a technical side, as in what all scripting I'll do, what all technology I'll use, the fields, the forms, and all those structure. But ITIL says that, okay, don't only think about whenever you get a build requirement, don't only think about the technical aspect of it, but also think about how will you make your tool better than the existing tool in the market. What does that contribute to? So the contribution of that will be, in this particular case, for example, if your tool is ITIL based, the benefit ITIL says is that it says that, okay, don't only think about the technical aspect, but rather also think about how will you increase the demand of the tool, how will you increase up the capacity of the tool, how your database backups you have to take on a regular interval and stuff like that. So multiple parameters are there defined in your ITIL. And the best benefit of ITIL is that it is very much flexible. That is, even if it has a number of steps defined, let's say it has parameter A, B, C, whatever it is. So even if your tool only passes on the parameter A, but still it will be called the ITIL process only, as in still your tool will be called the ITIL compatible. That is, ITIL never forces your tool to accept each and every parameters of itself, but rather whatever is comfortable for you to your tool to pass on, you can pick it up, and whatever your tool can't go through because of the complexity or whatever the reasoning may be involved, your tool can skip it and still it will be called a ITIL tool. So the easiest parameter to understand over here will be the capacity. That is, let's say if I designed a library management tool, I must think about what and how can I test around the capacity. That is, for example, let's say if I'm doing a dry run to test the capacity for around 50 people, I should never sell the product to maybe an organization where maybe 10,000, 20,000 people are there. You should always be sure about how much how much load your server can take, and accordingly you should do the marketing of the tool. If not, then you should do the server uh, duplication and all parallel server running, so that the load gets shared between the multiple server. That is, this load balancing and all those stuff can also be used over there. Again, the next parameter is your ITIL says that, okay, don't have a single server whenever you have some critical data, rather do the server replica. As I told you yesterday, that is within ServiceNow also what we are doing is within ServiceNow also, ServiceNow parent company, they are doing the server replica of production. That is, each and every hour backup is getting stored in another location, so that if today location A or location B or whatever it is having some issue, your ServiceNow tool, ServiceNow owner company, once you raise a ticket with themselves, they will just change the pointer from server location A to server location B, so that your tool again comes up and running and starts working as desired. There is no discrepancy in the data. So because of all these aspects, obviously your customer satisfaction will be more, your rework will get reduced. If you're thinking about the process side too, the rework will be less, customer satisfaction will be more, profit will be more, so on and so forth. So ITIL itself, as you told that, yeah, ITIL is a process side of the training. It itself is a training which talks about how the process parameters are there. It has got its own life cycle, and each life cycle it talks about, okay, for example, you do the designing in this life cycle. Once done, you strategize the designing, then you build the work, then you enhance the work, so on and so forth. So a number of life cycle parameters of ITIL are there. So as I told you, these process parameters ITIL is giving it to you. Optional they are to follow or not to follow. So I'm not going to the detail of that, but yeah, we should understand that ServiceNow is based on ITIL. So obviously all the benefits of ITIL are even incorporated inside the ServiceNow too. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
So next slide talks about the benefits. So as I told you, all these benefits will even be in ServiceNow because ServiceNow is based on this framework.
One question I have here, Saloni. So,
Yeah.
when defining the capacity of the instance, how does the ServiceNow admin decide it? Does the developer decide it? How is the capacity allocated for the ServiceNow instance?
Okay. So as I was telling you yesterday, how is ServiceNow charging? Let's first see that. So ServiceNow says your company, when it starts using ServiceNow as ticketing tool, ServiceNow says that I'll be charging based on the license level. What is the license based on? So license is based on how many users are using your production environment. In your dev and the test environment, you can still have a number of users which are more than what is there in the production, but it is not chargeable based on that. How many active users, how many people who are using production environment of your organization ServiceNow tool, based on that the ServiceNow is going to charge. So how is the database getting managed and all? So it is working in the expansion manner. That is, for example, let's say initially, if suppose you agreed on 100 people getting using the tool, so the moment the number of employees increase, the moment number of users increase, to balance the load, the server gets expanded. It itself happens from the ServiceNow endpoint, that you are not bothered about. You are only bothered about, as I told you, the licensing thing. That is obviously, in that case, ServiceNow will be charging you extra.
Got it. Okay. So no capacity allocation, no manual calculation or formulas. It just takes care of itself based on the number of users.
Yeah.
Got it.
It does the server expansion if and when required.
Got it.
So the next thing to understand over here in this particular one is what are the features or the benefits of the tool. So the first thing first over here in this case is ServiceNow is very simple and consistent to use. Why do we say so? Because if you know the ITIL concepts, if you know the applications which ITIL is giving it to you, for you to search it out in ServiceNow and to consume it will be quite an easy task. Just to show you one example over here, let's say if I take you to the tool over here. This is my tool. How to get it, I'll talk about that too. So let's say, for example, right now, if I'm looking for incident, in the left hand side, just when I type the keyword, whatever I'm looking for, you can see the related keywords containing that typed in info is getting returned to me over here. So ServiceNow tool is very simple and consistent to use. That is searching the data, searching the info is quite an easy process. Again, I'll go into the detail of that after some time. We'll talk about each and every aspect of it.
Okay.
Next is flexibility. Flexibility and easy to integrate, guys, will make a valid sense to you when I'll be covering the integration. So for now to know this, for now to understand it, you can see that if you would have done integration of any tool with whatever the technology may be, you would have seen that whenever you do the integration, you have to call all those package files for the system to understand and relate the things. But whenever you are doing the integration using ServiceNow, in the ServiceNow has done the backend processing on its own. In case of ServiceNow, when you are doing the integration in case of ServiceNow, it is more about a configuration. It is not that much scripting which you are doing in the ServiceNow integration side of it. So we'll discuss it in detail, but at a later stage, I'm not going into that right now. Okay. The next thing over here is security. As yesterday you were saying that the database of ServiceNow is located into the ServiceNow parent company scope. So how are we accessing the data? We are accessing the data to the web-based interface. So now what do we need to understand is, now we need to understand over here in this particular one up that how is the data getting accessed, correct? So in that particular case, how is the security getting maintained and stuff? So if you'll see, ServiceNow always does the transaction through the HTTPS protocol. By using this HTTPS protocol, ServiceNow is maintaining or giving you the data safety or the data security. Okay. Next over here is what? The last benefit which I've written it over here is speed time to production, which is nothing but obviously, as I told you, ServiceNow is ITIL based, so rework will be less, because of which speed time to production will be there.
Saloni, one question. Do we need to use any version control tools or deployment tools when it comes to ServiceNow, or is it just straight packaging and putting it in production?
It is just the packaging. We'll talk about within ServiceNow itself. There's the application which will do the packaging for you whenever you do the dev work. There's application within ServiceNow to capture it up. We'll talk about.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So now when we are doing this configuration or setup, the next thing which we need to understand is what? The next thing which we now need to understand over here in this particular one up is how do we use the tool? That is, what is the architecture of the tool? So let's see this particular one up. So if you see the architecture of the tool, on the top end is what located is your user interface. So what do I mean by this architecture? Why did I draw this particular one up? Is because how will an end user interact with your tool? For sure, an end user will be interacting with the tool by the UI, by the user interface. Correct. So end user will either be seeing the viewing the data on the UI perspective or editing the data, whatever the case may be. Next is SOAP and other protocols. I've kept it on the same level. SOAP and other protocols are nothing but these are the integration parameters. Integration is done by these. What does it mean? We'll understand in detail later, but for the time being, we can understand that these protocols are used whenever we have to integrate ServiceNow with some other tool, some other technology. I've kept it on the same level just to make you understand that be it users, that is the end users, or be it the third parties, that is the integration parties, they won't have access to the below line layer. End user will only have access to user interface. Integration team will only have access to these protocols. They'll not be having access to the below layers. So this architecture becomes important one, guys, when you go to your interviews and stuff. So you need to relate to it better. So the first thing first over here in this particular one up is the top layer, whereas I told you end users and third parties have access limited only to that layer.
Got it.
So now let's
So,
see that.
Saloni, one question. So, end users and third-party users have only access only limited to user interface, right?
No, end user will have access only to user interface, third party only to
Okay.
protocol. Vice versa will not be.
Okay. And who are the integration layer?
Okay. So integration layer is nothing but it is lying somewhere over here only. These protocols are nothing but the integration layer.
Okay. And do ServiceNow developers have access to the scripting and DB layer, or
I'll
are we
talk about
limited to the scripting layer? Oh,
I'll talk about So now, as I told you, the scope of this one, let's try to understand the scripting layer, who will be exposed to this particular one. So people like us, we the developers of ServiceNow, we will be doing scripting within ServiceNow, and that's why we are going for this training to learn the ServiceNow scripting. How has it been designed or structured? So what ServiceNow has done is to decrease its dependency on any scripting language and to make it more flexible. ServiceNow has developed its own scripting language. So if you know JavaScript, if you know your HTML, things will be easy because you will see very much similarity. But even if you don't know that, even if you at least understand the basic scripting fundamentals, I'm still okay with that. As in that particular case, for sure, you can learn those syntax as if this belongs to ServiceNow itself. Okay.
okay.
So our
So
training agenda is Mhm.
JavaScript and HTML.
Yeah.
It is similar to JavaScript and HTML. Okay. Sure.
So our scripting, what we are doing over here is we as a developer, we are only having access to the scripting layer. At any particular point in time, obviously, we will be writing queries where we need to fetch the data from the database. We will be writing queries when we need to set data to the database. Any such thing which you as a developer will be doing, you will be doing as per the ServiceNow scripting syntax. You will never be writing the actual SQL commands at any particular point in time.
Okay.
Okay. So when I make that statement now, who is having the access to the below two layers and what's the use of that? Now let's see that with an example. So in the scripting layer, let's say I
Saloni,
wrote a command.
one question.
Mhm.
So when you say its own scripting language and not SQL, I didn't get it correctly. Can you repeat it again?
I'll complete that. Just one second. In the DB layer, I'm going to
Oh,
talk about that.
oh,
Just give me 1 second, okay?
okay, sure.
So when you write in the scripting layer, as I told you, ServiceNow has got its own syntax. It is not using your SQL command to select, insert, update all those SQL scripting syntaxes. It is not going to use it up. So when you are writing ServiceNow scripting in the scripting layer, what does a database understand? The last layer of yours, that is the database, that is the server. Database only understands the SQL command. So do you agree now ServiceNow written scripting which you have done in the scripting layer needs to be converted to SQL for your database to understand? Correct? A database only understands SQL. I can't ask database to understand ServiceNow scripting because
Okay,
ServiceNow
got
scripting
it.
is something developed by ServiceNow. So this
Okay,
conversion happens where this conversions happen in your DB layer.
okay.
Make sense? So who will be exposed to the DB layer? Should developers, people like us, be exposed to the DB layer?
I think so. Yes, because our script, whatever scripts we have written, are getting converted in the DB layer. So at least we need to have some exposure to the DB layer, right?
So in that case, ServiceNow itself would have asked you to learn the SQL and write the coding, correct? Then why did they ask you to write the
Right.
script in ServiceNow, correct? So for sure, you don't have access at any particular point in time. You don't have access to the DB layer.
Okay.
You're only limited to what? You are only limited to the scripting layer. As a developer, you can customize the UI. That is the first layer. The user interface you can customize. You can customize the integrations. As a developer, you can even obviously you for sure you will be doing the scripting. But the last two layers, the DB layers and the database, you will never have access to.
Got it. So we should mainly focus on scripting, UI, SOAP, and other protocols areas only.
Yeah.
Developers and okay.
Any
Saloni,
queries so far?
does admins or integration architects, do those people have any exposure to the third and fourth layer, or are they limited to the first two layers?
The third and fourth layer are limited to Servicenow parent company. Even if you are developer, even if you are admin, you won't have access to the last two layers.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So
Good so far?
can we forget about the last three or third and fourth layer, or do we still need to understand it? I mean, do we get asked about those layers in
You
the
didn't.
interviews?
You won't get asked.
Okay,
That is not into your scope, so that will not be part of your interview for sure.
sure. Got it.
So they're totally controlled and in scope by of service.
Okay.
Any other query?
Yep. We're good. Let's continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is architecture of the tool. This is how ServiceNow has been structured. So now let's proceed further, and now let's try to understand a set of applications. So what my training agenda will be first, as I was telling you yesterday, first to get you used to ServiceNow as an end user. Because obviously first when you understand the tool, only then you will be able to enhance or do the customizations in the tool. That is how I am going to begin the training with. Okay, so first I'll talk about all these key applications. We'll discuss each and every applications in detail. Only then we'll be proceeding further to talk about other scopes. Okay. So now the first application, these are the set of the applications which I'll be starting with, and then slowly and steadily when we dig into the training, we'll talk about a number of other applications too. So the first set of applications are these. I'll first begin with the first application over here called incident. Now, before I do so, as I told you, on a regular interval, I'll be giving you assignment and expecting you to do the same. So for sure, you need to get access in the tool.
Yes.
Correct. So now the question is, okay, how can you get the access in the tool? How is it feasible? What I need to give you access about? So for that reasoning, ServiceNow says is that it is providing free of cost demo instances for the training purposes and for the learning purposes.
Okay.
Those are not chargeable. For those, you just need to register yourself and you will get the URL. But because those are free of cost, you must log in once in a day into those URLs to keep those active.
Got it.
If you don't log in for a day, it will go in a sleep mode. You can still wake it up. But if you don't log continuously for a week, that URL will be taken back from you. So in that case, whatever
Got
coding
it.
you would have written over there, it will get wiped or erased off.
Got it.
Okay. So let's check it out. Let's try to first understand how does that URL look like? How can you get your own instance? So for that, what you'll have to do is you will have to go to a website. This I'm pinging you guys up in your chat window. So you will have to go to this particular website and register yourself. After registering, when you log into the URL, you will get an option over there called request your own instance. And that is where you will click on to get your own instance or your own URL. Okay. So now let's try to proceed further. So what I'm going to begin with is, as I told you, is incident. So let's first understand what is an incident and then we'll dig into. So what it says over here is the definition of the incident. What does it say? It says that incident is nothing but it is we use this particular application when something is broken and when something is not working as desired. Okay, so let's try to understand how does it work over here in this case. Can you help me with an example of the same? When will we create incident in the organizational endpoint?
Create a ticket that my database is down.
Correct. So
Create
in any
a
such
laptop request.
when something is broken, a new request you will not be creating through incident. Incident only is created when you are holding some accesses or some tool and now it is not working as desired. Only then you are creating an incident. So your first example was apt, that is when your database goes down. The second example can be, let's say my corporate laptop is now not working, it has crashed. In any such cases, you will be creating an incident. If anything is broken, then you will create an incident.
Okay, something needs to be broken, which means something which was working earlier is not working now, and I want to fix it. That is when I will open a ticket.
Perfect.
Incident management. Okay.
Yep. Only when something is not working as desired, that's called an incident.
Okay. So only one question. If my laptop is on Windows 7 and I want to upgrade it to Windows 10, what is
That
it
will be a
considered? Is
service
it a
request. It is not an incident.
service request? Okay. That's
I'll
fine.
talk about that. We'll see that application too, but that is not an incident. Okay. So let's see how to create an incident. I want you guys to understand the life cycle of incident from Servicenow endpoint for you to understand each and every scope of the tool better. So let's start with the same. To create incident, as I typed incident in the left hand side, multiple options are getting returned to me over here. I'll talk about what all these applications are later, guys. I'm just beginning with now. So under the header, you can see over here, system is writing create new. So under the incident header, you have to go to create new to create a new incident for yourself. What are other options? We'll talk about. Don't worry about that. So I want to create a new incident over here in the database right now. So this is the button which I clicked on. When I did so, you can see a new form is coming over here for me where a set of fields are there. So I want you to get used to these fields for you to understand, because if you get a job of an admin person in the ServiceNow perspective, you must need to understand these fields. You must need to understand the scope of these, because n number of other applications will have the similar structure, will have the similar designing. So if you understand it better, you are admin means what? Your responsibility is also to help the end users. So for that particular reasoning, what should happen? For that particular reasoning, you must go ahead in the system perspective and understand and relate to these fields over here.
Got it. Yeah.
The first field over here is what? The first field over here is your number. What can be the use of number?
Yeah, uniquely identifiable number which can be tracked or shared with others. And yeah.
Correct. So at any particular point in time, when we want people to interact with each other, obviously if the uniqueness is maintained, it becomes easy. If each ticket gets an individual ticket number, it becomes easy for us to do the interaction, because we know, okay, never ever two records will have the same number. Correct. For that particular reasoning, you can see the moment I clicked on create new, a new number got auto populated over there in that case. I'm logged in as what right now? In your demo instance, you get your account created always on the name of system administrator. So when you will also register, your user account will be created by the same name, that is system administrator. Okay, but in a real time, what will happen in a real time in your organizational perspective? For sure, you will have an account with your individual name. There you will not be using this system administrator account, rather it will be a user account with your individual name over there with which you will be logging in. Now, at any given point in time, if you see right now, as the name says system administrator right now, so do you agree right now I'm logged in as a super user? Correct? So when you
Yes.
are logged in as a super user, means what? You do have full access into the tool. That is, any limitation which works for others will not apply to you. You will have full access inside the tool perspective. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do
Okay.
we need to understand over here in this particular one up is, at any given point in time over here, if you can see the field number is a table. It is only a table because I'm a super user over here. Correct. Otherwise, to the end user, this field will get auto populated, and for sure it should not be a table. Okay. Next over here is caller. Now let's try to understand who is a caller. So caller is nothing but who is the actual impacted person. That particular person is called the caller. Okay, so now at one place it can be the case that you are creating the incident for yourself. So in that case, you will fill in your name in the caller, but it can even be the case that what if, let's say, my laptop crashed. So obviously in that case, I can't create incident for myself, and in that particular case, for sure, I'll be requesting someone else to create a ticket on my behalf. So caller is the actual impacted person. Either it can be the person who is creating the ticket, or you will be creating the ticket on behalf of someone else. So whosoever is facing the issue, his or her name needs to go into the caller. Okay, so if you can see over here in the caller, there is a magnifying glass. Now let's try to understand the relevance of that. So if you, for example, first I'll try to enter over here in this particular one up your name over here. So let's say if Vinisha is facing the issue, I'll go over here and type Vinisha. And if I click outside the field, what you can see is system is throwing me the error over here. Means for sure this field is not a regular string field, it has some other associated behavior, which we now need to understand. So let's check it out. So let me just wipe it off first. Let's use this magnifying glass to see what it does. It bring it to us on the table. When I clicked on the magnifying glass, guys, what you can see is system is giving me a pop-up on the screen over here, which is nothing but it is pulling the data. It looks like it is pulling the data from another table. Which table is pulling the data from? It's written over here. It says users, means for sure over here it is pulling the data from the user table. So whosoever is the impacted person, for whomsoever I'm creating the incident, I'll just need to, even if it is myself, I'll search myself over here and click on that name, whosoever is the caller. So let's say if I click on it, you can see yes, the selection happened. So the behavior of this field is what? The behavior of this field over here in this particular one is, at any given point in time, we need to understand what? At any given point in time, we need to understand that these type of fields, any field having a magnifying glass, will never let you type in the data, rather it will ask you to select the data. I'll repeat, in these kind of fields, you are never typing in the data, rather you are selecting the data. What is the benefit which comes by this is, because you are selecting the data, the benefit is that human error will not be possible in this. So if it could have been a regular string field, what you would have ended up with? If it is a regular string field, you could have typed in the name. Let's say, for example, maybe Vinisha, let's say your name, I don't know, I have misspelled the name. So later on, when the technician needs to understand, needs to do the interaction with you to understand your issue better, he will be confused. Okay, who is the actual user? Because he is not able to find your spelling, your name spelling in the organization. But for sure over here, if the selection of the data has happened, if you have selected the user from the user table, we know that human error is not possible. We have selected the correct user.
Yes.
So that's why at any particular point in time, what do we need to understand? At any particular point in time, we need to understand that in these kind of field, you will always do the data selection. So what are these type of fields called? So Servicenow has designed these kind of field. The type of these fields are called reference. I'll just note it down over here for you to relate. The type of these fields are called reference. So any field, if it has a magnifying glass, is a reference field. That is, in such fields, we do selection of data. We don't type in the data.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So magnifying glass field is called a reference field.
Yep.
And what is the second type of field?
Which second
Just
type of
one,
field?
right?
Yeah, I'm
So
only
far we
talking about
discussed only one, right? Okay. Yeah. Got it.
string field and all. I'm not writing here. And this number
Oh,
field is a regular string field, so nothing much, nothing new for us to discuss.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So now the moment I select the caller, what is the location parameter over here? Let's try to understand that. So in the location, what you need to provide, in the location you need to provide which location the caller belongs to. That is obviously if I'm a technician, let's say maybe I'm in a pack. If you are in a pack, if you are the caller, you are the impacted person, it quite makes sense. It will be better if we can assign a technician in the same location, so that if required, you can just walk into the technician or vice versa. So for that particular reasoning, what we need to understand is that whenever we are selecting the caller, whenever we are providing, okay, which is the person facing the issue, it is better if we can even provide the location where that particular person is sitting up. Correct. So let's try to understand how does it work over here in this case. So the first thing first over here in this particular one up, again, location is also having magnifying glass. Means what? Again, in the location, you're going to do the data selection. Let's check it out. How does it work here? Here it says location. Means what do we understand that by this is not every reference field will pull the data from the same table. In the caller, when I was clicking on the magnifying glass, it was showing me user over there, correct? That is, caller was pulling the data from the user table.
Yes. So
Over here in this
one
case,
question. So do they have their independent tables, or all these columns, all these reference columns go to the bunch of tables?
what do you mean by that?
Okay, you said that all the reference fields need not go and hit the same table, right? They need not pull the data from the same table.
Correct.
So
Each
do they
field,
have their independent tables?
just 1 second. So while structuring the field, when you create the field, that time you tell to the field database side, as in the definition of the field, there you define it up. That field has to, if it is a reference, that field has to pull the data from which table, you define it at the time of field structure. When the field is created,
Okay.
at the time it is defined.
Sure. Is it significant how we define these, how we connect these reference fields to tables at the database level? Is it
Can you repeat your
important,
question?
or is it just another step?
What is important?
Is it an important step, like how we refer the call reference field, how we connect the reference field to a particular table? Is it because we are essentially designing how these fields are connecting to the backend, right? Is it an important step, or is it just another step?
I'll talk about, we'll discuss. We'll see how our reference is designed and all the. I think at that time you will get this answered, how the configuration of that is done and where do we do the association of the tables with the fields. We'll discuss that. We'll talk it at the time of the field creation and stuff. Okay, so right now I just wanted to make you understand over here that not every reference field will pull the data from the user table. It is totally depend on the reference field structure. While defining the field, it has been defined in the database that from which table does it need to fetch the data from.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. So you can see I can expand the regions over here. And obviously in those regions, wherever your office is located, those are loaded over here in this table, in the location table, and you can make the selection of that. Now, I'll show you one scenario over here. Let's say I wipe it off the caller and the location. I'll just show you one user which is there out of the box into your tool too. So I'm selecting, when you type in the username, I type in how does it bring me the data. So when I type in some keyword in any reference field, system searches that keyword in the reference table. And if that keyword is found, then the system gives you the suggestion to select that. Like I know there is a user able to, even in your tool, you will get that. So that's why I picked up that user over here in specific. So if I click on that user, what you can see on selection of that user, even his location got loaded. How? How did that happen in the instance perspective over here?
Maybe it's linked.
So because in the backend it is defined into the system as what? In the backend it is defined into the system that in the caller table, that is in the user table of this user, it is defined that this user belongs to this location. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in the DB, it is structured that this particular user belongs to which location. So that's why on section of the user, his location got auto-populated. So there are scripts written for sure. Obviously, it will not happen. Everything has a script written inside in the backend. All these scriptings, whatever has been done from the scripting perspective, not from the DB perspective. That is, you can't see the SQLs associated, but you can see what? You can't see the SQL associated, but you can, guys, just give me 1 second. Any particular point in time, you will be able to see the Servicenow scripting associated for sure, but the DB part of the scripting for sure will not be into your scope. You will not be able to see or view that or alter that too. The translation you will not be able to see. But how that calculation is happening, as in caller's location should go here, that code is exposed to us. Okay. So for sure, these two fields are referenced. What are these icons and all? I'll discuss that later. I'm not going to that right now. We'll talk about it, so don't worry. So next thing over here is your categorization. So over here in the category, you are providing the categorization of the issue, of which kind the issue is. That categorization you are providing it over here. Is it hardware related issue, software related, those type of the issues, those classification you are giving it up over here. Why are you providing it up over here? The person whosoever is creating the issue must provide these parameters, because later on the assignment of the team, which team will look into the issue, will be dependent on the category and the subcategory. So that's why we must give the valid value there in the category. So let's say if I know, suppose for me, if the issue is software related, based on the category, again the subcategories choices will change. If it is software, you can see these options are there. If it is hardware, you can see the options gets changed. Obviously related to hardware, now the choices are getting displayed too. So whatever type the issue is, you are going ahead and making the selection of the same. Okay. So you as a developer, your responsibility can also revolve around making these changes. I can very well come to you as a developer and say that, okay, I want in my organization, these are free, these are out of the box choices or the classification of the issue categorizations. In my company, it can even be the case that, let's say, we also provide fixes for printer access, or we also provide fixes for employees name if wrong later and stuff like that. So even those should be available in this category and subcategory choices over here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What is configuration item? I'll talk about later, guys. We'll see the assets and their detail at a later stage, so I'm not going to that right now. So till this, are we making sense? Do you have any query till here, till these fields over here?
No.
No questions.
Check it. So now let's proceed further and let's try to dig in a little bit more further over here. So the next thing over here is your short description, the description which I need to now talk about. Now, I'll come to these fields in a minute. So in the short description, you're going to provide a single line description of the issue, the single line detail of the issue, what exact issue the end user is facing. And description will be nothing but the detailed description, the replication step and all, you will give it in the description. And in the short description, you will give the elaboration of the single line description of the issue. So let's say, suppose, for example, let's say I'm creating this particular ticket for me over here, because suppose my keyboard is not at all working. So I can elaborate that that short description over here. So I can say, so it can be the case, obviously, if my keyboard itself is not working, for sure in this in this particular case, I would have asked someone else to create a ticket on my behalf. So in the situation like this, the caller and the created person will be different. Caller is the impacted person, creator is the person who created the ticket. So in this case, in this kind of issue, for sure, you will not be able to create a ticket on yourself. Rather, you will be asking someone to create a ticket on your behalf. So there are chances when the caller and the created by person is different. Okay. So the next thing over here in this particular one up is your description. As I told you in the description, you will give the detailed step. How can a technician replicate your issue? Now, a technician in a day, let's say for example, suppose if I'm a technician, I get hundreds of tickets assigned to me. How will I prioritize the incident? Which incident I'll look first, which incident I'll look later? Do you have any idea on that?
Um, Urgency.
Okay, so the answer to that is priority.
Okay.
So if I'm a technician, if I get multiple tickets assigned to me, I'll decide which one needs to be worked first based on the priority. So the ticket with the least priority, that is the P1 tickets, are the critical ones to the organization. So P1s are only created when some service of the organization has crashed. So P1s are not created from an individual perspective, but P1s are created from the organizational endpoint. We can't create a P1. Let's say if my laptop is not working, it will not be a P1. A P1 will be when a tool's database has crashed, a server is not working, and stuff like that. That is on a larger scale. When something is impacting on the organizational level, the business of the company, in such cases, the P1s are created. Now, who is reporting an incident, guys? Anyone in the organization can report an incident. Agree? Anyone can face issue. Be it a technician, be it an end user. Obviously, the employees of a company, they should be. As I told you yesterday, Servicenow is never customer facing. So anyone in the organization will be able to create an incident. For the people to understand that, okay, the priority should be decided not based on individual issue, but it should be based on the organizational skill, will be difficult if the person is end user. If the person is technician of that department, he can relate the things. But if he is an end user, for him everything is critical because for him something is broken. So that's why, to avoid the confusion, what we are saying it over here in this case, if you can check it out, that priority is in gray color. Means you as an end user, you as a customer, you can never edit or change the priority field value. Make sense? So how does the priority get calculated? Who decides the priority? So priority is based on the impact and the urgency selection. So how does the formula work? The formula works, priority is always equal to the impact value plus urgency value minus 1. Okay, so that's how the priority calculation works. So let's check it out. Let me do some change. Let's see whether the value changes or not. So you will see it 1 second. It is changing here. I've done some backend changes in the system because of which it did not get refreshed that time. So if you can see, the priority is getting refreshed. So what is the formula? As I told you, the formula is the numeric part of impact plus urgency minus 1 gives you the priority value. So the numeric part of impact plus urgency gives you what? It gives you the value as your 3, and that after that you subtract 1. So it becomes 2. So that's why the priority has become 1. Sorry, it has become 2. Sorry, over here. So priority is always based on the impact urgency calculation. Even if I'm admin, even if I'm a super user here, I'm managing the tool, correct? I'm the admin over here. But still you can see I can't edit the priority field value directly. So it is always a calculated field. It can never be selected directly in the case of incident. We are only doing so because we can't rely on the customers, on the end users for them to know the correct field value. And later on, technicians are going to prioritize their work based on the priority. That's why we are keeping the priority as non-editable. If an end user selects the wrong impact urgency, a technician quite has access to alter the priority at a later stage. Suppose you are end user, you selected impact urgency 1 so obviously your priority also becomes 1 in that case. So once the ticket goes to the technician, obviously technician does understand the business. So he has the authority, he has the right to change the priority, but obviously at that time he must need to provide the valid justification why it is do so and explain it to the end user. How will he update, in which field will he update, we'll talk about. So are we good till here? Is it making sense, the fields which I covered till now?
Yes.
So the next thing which we need to understand or talk about over here in this case is what? The next field which I need to talk about over here in this particular one up is on the right hand side. The first field is opened by. As the name says, opened by means which person created this incident, which person is clicking on the create new button of this one, his or her name goes into the created by, opened by. So opened by is nothing but the person who is creating the ticket. So as I said, it can be the case that I am only creating the ticket for myself. So in that case, obviously the open by and your caller will be the same. If I'm creating the ticket on behalf of someone, obviously in that case, open by and caller will be different. Open by will always get auto populated, guys. You should not be selecting in the data in that. So whosoever clicks on create new, his or her name gets auto populated in this open by field over here.
Saloni, one question. The number also gets auto-populated, or it is just our ID or something like that?
Sorry, what? The number what?
Does the number gets auto-populated?
It got auto populated, right? The moment I clicked on new, it was auto
Okay.
populated. I didn't type in.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll wrap it up over here, guys. We'll catch up tomorrow and then we'll proceed further. I think next class is on Monday, if I'm not wrong. I'll talk to Srinivas. We can let you know.
Okay, sure.
Sure. Sounds good. So no weekend classes, right, Lodi?
I'll have to discuss with him. I'm not sure how he has planned it up. So maybe you
Okay,
can
sure.
talk.
Either way, we are flexible. Srini did not discuss it with us also. So either way, we'd like to finish as soon as possible, but
Yeah.
so you're flexible.
I'll check with him. And I'll ask him to, just let you guys also know the same.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay then. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.